Welcome to the Brave Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Lynn, founder of Sistership Circle and author of Open Your Heart and The Art of Leading Circle. I'm the mother of 2 girls, an 8 on the Enneagram, aka the Challenger, happily married to my business partner, Brent, love connecting with nature, and have put in well over 10,000 hours circling with other women. On this podcast, we will explore how to embody the brave woman so that you can take action on your dreams and desires, unapologetically speak your truth, and live life on your own terms. Grab a seat and a cup of tea, and let's get started. 2 weeks ago, we talked about sister wound. Last week, we talked about mother wound. And today, we are talking about the witch wound. So before we get into this topic, I want to share about my weekend. It will create some context and give us some tools, I think, for today's talk. I am in the 3-year somatic experiencing program, and we had our second training weekend. This is Peter Levine's work. It's well renowned around the world. And I came into this work to become more trauma informed, as well as to learn more about regulating my nervous system. And on Sunday, we watched a video of Peter Levine walking one of the practitioners through the process of activation and deactivation. That's what we call the cycle of getting triggered and then coming and regulating your nervous system. And it was an extremely, extremely sensitive topic. It was that this woman had been raped at gunpoint in her 20s, and taking her back into that and going into the freeze response and then taking herself out and basically coming out with a roar. This feels so relevant for what we're talking about here around the wounds with the feminine and healing the feminine and the systematic oppression of women. The intergenerational wounding, the intergenerational trauma that women have been enduring. I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, what happened for me? As she was going into a freeze, I completely disassociated. I fell asleep. And when I woke up, because it could just feel so good to just fall asleep when you're feeling yourself checking out. When I came back, I got up, went to the back of the room to grab myself a tea, and as I was walking back towards my seat, one of the teacher's assistant, who was right by the door, was tracking me as I was walking back and looking me in the eyes, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I just fell asleep." And she said, "Oh, interesting timing. She's going into freeze right now on the screen." And all of a sudden, I had this whole wave of emotion come up from my roots and just completely overwhelm, and it felt like I was gonna throw up. And I pushed on the door. The door wasn't open. I'm like, I gotta get out. She's like, "This way." She directs me to the back of the room, and we go outside. And I am hyperventilating, sobbing, just completely have lost it. Interestingly, I could feel my throat going out. So it was so powerful because I was able to feel this full activation, the crying, the hyperventilating, to then be able to reorient myself. I was outside, so feeling the sea breeze and coming back into my body and coming to a sense of regulation. And then the discharge, what I would call discharge of my my teeth chattering, shaking, just it felt like I was really releasing my own freeze response, my own pattern of where I disassociate. And this is so important for us to, first of all, understand that when we go into freeze, because when we are in a traumatic state, we either go into fight, flight, or freeze. And there's absolutely nothing wrong when we go into freeze. Nothing wrong. It's actually the body's way of protecting itself, the body's way of staying safe. And so as women, with the systematic oppression that we have endured from the patriarchy, a very common response for us is to go into freeze. There's nowhere to run. There's no way that we can fight back. We can check out, we can leave the body, or we can just have the body go completely stiff and frozen in hopes that we can then escape death. So, for her, the response was with the rape, to endure this man raping her at gunpoint. There's nothing else she can do. And I am able to kind of feel, there's the mirror neurons of where I can feel her and triggering my own freeze and disassociation response to my own trauma, whatever it was. And it really doesn't even matter what it was. The content of why I was having this reaction is completely irrelevant. But we need to first, as women, really not go into shame if we go into freeze. And so as we're going into the witch wound today, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that first. When it comes to expressing our magic, tapping into our intuition, and that fear of being burned at the stake comes up, we can naturally want to check the fuck out. We can naturally go into the freeze. So we can first have that awareness and acknowledge that is, and that's a response that's actually okay. Nothing wrong. So can we take the shame out of this conversation today? Witch wound. So the greatest context that I like to create for the witch wound is that women, and not just women, right? There were many men, were burned at the stake and killed for being witches. And this happened for centuries, really. And the burning times, we can say, we don't even know how many people were killed, but a lot. There's some that say, 80,000, 100,000, maybe more. This was happening in Europe. And that was around, I think, the 1600s. But this was going back all the way to the 1200s and has even continued to this day. There are still cases of women being killed for witchcraft today, which is just unfathomable. And so when we can understand intergenerational trauma and systematic oppression, we can understand that fear is passed down through generations. And it doesn't even matter if this is within your own lineage, because they say that it's passed from cell to cell, right? Like I was an egg in my grandmother's womb. So whatever she was feeling vibrationally affected me. But it's not even just lineage. It's that set a standard. By burning all those people for being witches and for essentially going against whatever the patriarchy said was okay, everyone learned the lesson that you don't get out of line because this is what's going to happen to you. So the fear that was instilled in those people has been passed down. And it keeps getting reactivated when different things happen where people who stick their neck out and aren't following the norm are persecuted. It just keeps getting reactivated in every generation. So even if you don't have a witch per se who was burned at the stake in your direct lineage, if you are a woman who's spiritual, if you are a woman who's even doing holistic health or connected with herbs, or you don't even need to call yourself a witch. We are affected, we are activated by the witch wound. And what I've seen over the last few years is how many women actually get triggered with the word itself. I remember one woman in our mastery program who was like, I'm not a witch. Like that just brings up so much. I would much rather be called a priestess. And I think many of us can relate with that because witch has gotten such a bad name. Why would we want to be identifying with something so grotesque? Because that is how the mainstream culture has depicted the witch. She's an old, ugly hag who lives out as a recluse in the woods. She's got a long nose, a green face. She's really old and a little wart on the top of her nose. And we've seen pictures of this in Disney movies, in fairy tales. She is the villain. Why on earth would we want to be called a witch? So when we see books like Witch by Lisa Lister and we see books like Pussy by Mama Gina come out that are all about the reclamation of these words, we have more and more women today who are self-proclaimed witches or identifying with the word witch as part of the way of normalizing that and not having it be so evil and yucky and grotesque. And what I love is actually the other day on Facebook, seeing that woman from my mastery program a few years ago claim it in a Facebook post. And I was like, yes, okay, so that's how far we've come. So in and of itself, of us reclaiming that word is giving us our power back, taking our power back. We take our power back through words, through actions. This is how we heal. And so when we start to see women reclaiming, that then ripples out into the collective and starts to affect more and more women, right? So healing creates more healing. A regulated nervous system regulates more nervous systems. This is called co-regulation. And I think this is why so many people are becoming trauma informed and doing programs like SE, somatic experiencing, because we're recognizing the importance that the nervous system plays in these conversations, in the healing. That we can only do talk therapy so much, we can only talk about it so much, it actually has to somatically get into the body. And that's the true healing. So there are the traditional witches who are pagan, who they practice witchcraft. And it's expanding, the word really is expanding beyond just those who are practicing witches in pagan witchcraft, religion, whatever you want to call it, and extending to regular women who are just identifying with that word because they feel so connected to the earth and they're spiritual and they see the magic of herbs. And it's so much more than that. And so, really, what today I want to talk about is what's your magic? What's your magic? Now, this doesn't mean casting spells. This doesn't mean even doing rituals. This doesn't mean being a powerful herbalist who makes potions. Yes, those are all amazing, awesome things, and it's so fun to play in the realm of rituals and that type of magic. But for healing the witch wound, this is about women reclaiming and owning their magic. And then the embodiment and expression of that magic in the world. And this is where we can really get into doing the work. And this is where the nervous system comes back in. And so that's where we're going. That's the trajectory of this conversation today. So as I've been tuning into this conversation and my magic, and I was just so triggered and activated before I came to sit in front of the mic here and talk, because I was feeling very disconnected from my magic. And I was feeling like, who am I to even express my magic in the world? So your magic is unique to you. And it might look like other women's magic because we're all very much connected. We're all one. And especially when we're moving in this spiritual direction, it's like it can start to blend and merge. And so it's almost like we're fractals of the same light, right? We're all just different angles and parts of the same light, which can feel very empowering knowing that we're not alone, but that we have our own individual light, our own magic to give. And that piece of feeling the individuation, as well as feeling like we are part and a belonging of the whole, of the collective, is a really important piece to this healing. This is the sovereignty inside of the collective. This is healthy boundaries, and this is how we can navigate being in community, but also being connected with ourselves. And this is so important in this culture today of canceling each other and no resilience really of being with the collective, but it becomes this like, I have to be the collective and I actually can't individuate myself. And so there's this confusion that we feel around, like, am I either a loner or am I part of it? And how do I really negotiate being myself while I'm part of community? Which is why we're here at Sistership Circle, to actually practice that and learn that together. But this piece of understanding what my magic is, what am I really here to bring to the world? That is a big part of witch. And so with magic, my expression, my embodiment of my magic is also really deeply connected with my intuition. And also the magic of the universe, the magic of this incredible Mother Earth, this like this planet that we're on as the spaceship through space. I mean, come on, magic. Right? So it's like I am the microcosm of the macrocosm of magic in the way in which this universe operates. Like, whoa, right? And we each have our part. The animal has its part, the plant has its part, the human has its part, like this, the dirt, the rocks, like it all has its part. We make up the ecosystem. And so when we could step into, well, what's mine? What's my magic? And how do I express that in the most authentic, truthful way that's also creating space and honoring of someone else's magic right next to me? That it doesn't have to be one's better than the other, power over. It's like, no, together we're more powerful when we bring our magic. And that's part of the healing of the witch wound, is the honoring of each other's magic, the celebration of each other's magic. So it's one thing, it's the first part to identify, to really feel that, sink into and embody our individual magic of what am I here to do? What am I here to bring? How am I impacting the world? And my gifts, my strengths, my passions. And the coming out, the expression of that, the giving of that gift. And that's where those two places are where we get caught and stuck. Where the witch wound comes up is the number one, the disconnection from our intuition, from who we are, from that magic. But if I actually get visible with this, if I actually tell anyone this, am I going to get burned at the stake? Am I going to get kicked out from the tribe? What's going to happen to me if I express this in the world, if I don't keep it a secret? Because witches had to go underground, right? It was dangerous to let anyone know that you had some brews in the apothecary, that you knew some rituals and some spells, that you can heal people in a traditional sense, I would say, like versus the modern medicine. Like, ooh, yeah, they're going to come after me. So I'm very much connected to that right now, today, in this moment, as I'm sitting here in San Diego, kind of sort of on a break, getting myself prepared to come back out into the world. So it's like I feel like I'm kind of in this hiatus, this internal gaining clarity, regrouping, and then going back out. Very much, well, yeah, like reconnecting with what my medicine is and the expression of that in a bigger way in the world. I would say most women, if you're listening to this, you probably can identify with that. And it's like, well, how do I bring these gifts out there without freezing? So one of the things that I've realized about myself, my magic, is I'm really good at bringing women together. I'm a weaver. I'm a tribe builder. I'm a co-creator. I teach co-creation. I'm really good at bringing the right people together to collaborate, to co-create. I'm really good at bringing just the right alchemy of people into a room to create a magical experience. That's my magic. I also know that my magic is in being a strategic activator. I activate something within people. I activate inspiration. I activate people's dreams. I activate their magic. And so one of the ways that I do that is by getting on stage. And there's two incidences in particular where I felt like I was being burned at the stake. The first one was when I got on stage at Feminine Uprising Live a few years ago. And I was dressed in this silk, tight, short, orange-ish peach dress. And I purposely wore this dress, even though my husband told me it was off-brand and it was maybe a little too much. I wanted a breakthrough in being visible, because I've always felt like I have to dim my light and look more smart than pretty. Like, pretty was going to get me into trouble, but it was also going to push people away from me. So I was going to rock it. And there was a woman who had a withhold and was super triggered with me, and, you know, in front of the room is basically going off about this. And I get that she was processing her own stuff and she was being responsible about, like, this is my thing that's coming up. But I felt like I was being burned at the stake. And here I am in this orange dress, literally feeling like I'm a flame on the stage. And then again, just in March 2022, during our Rise into Your Leadership event, there was a woman who got very triggered when I was offering how to lead circle to the group. That's part of my activation, is creating that offer, creating that pathway. And she was all over the internet. She was on our Facebook page. She was in the Facebook group. I mean, she was just in our sending emails. I mean, she was everywhere trying to take me down. And I felt like I was being burned at the stake. I did a Facebook Live in the group about this, of feeling like just oh my God, like it was just, I felt like I was being publicly shamed. And that's what this wound is. And it's not even about men. We do it to each other. We are happy to light the flame for another woman to burn. Not all of us, right? I'm not, but you know what I mean? Like, as a culture, that's how we've been conditioned. We mistrust one another, and that we uphold the patriarchy by turning each other in, by trying to take one another out. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago. That is the conditioning. We actually get caught into the belief that she is doing something wrong. So it's freaking scary to put ourselves out there. It feels so uncomfortable to put ourselves out there. It is so much easier to just be out in the woods as a recluse and just do my witchy magic by myself, for myself, and those who come out to the woods to seek me out. So much easier. And that might be what works for you. That might be the path for you. There's actually nothing wrong with that. But the conversation today is for the women who are like, no, I don't want to be in the closet. I want to take my broomstick out and I want to go fly. And I want to be seen out there in the moonlight. I want to get visible. And so we have to take the steps. And we have to work with our nervous systems to deactivate, to unfreeze ourselves when we go into that response, that trauma response. And so how do you do that? How, when you go into freeze, you go into disassociation, how do you pull yourself out? So here's the practice, here's the SE practice, is first to become aware of where the numbness, the freeze is happening in the body. To actually be with the sensation of the freeze in the body. And then to locate a part of the body that doesn't feel frozen. Maybe it's your left big toe. So bringing awareness to that right or left big toe and starting maybe to move it. So it's almost like the one thawed out part can then start to spread and bring warmth up the leg. So can you actually start to feel it coming up the leg? And so maybe you can now start having some movement in your extremities, in your arms and your legs. And then to go back and forth between the freeze and the part that's thawed out. And the other thing is to start to become aware of your surroundings, to start to orient. Because what happens is when a gazelle, for example, is being chased by a lion, and perhaps it tumbles and falls, it completely freezes. Its legs might even be frozen in the air. And so and hopefully it's praying that the lion will actually go away, because it's like, yeah, this isn't that, like doesn't taste good or whatever, right? And so once the lion leaves, then the body will come back online and start to orient to the surroundings and see, okay, is it safe? And so those are the two things to work with that freeze response, is where's the thaw part of the body? And start to orient yourself to the space and bringing yourself back out of the freeze and into, okay, can I feel the breeze? Okay, so if I felt my breath getting constricted, there's enough air in the room. And so it's really about working with the body, of how quickly we can come out of the freeze or not even go into it. Right? So can we catch ourselves when we start to get activated by maybe what someone says or just a thought of what someone says, and not even go into the freeze, catching ourselves before? And one of the things is to imagine yourself being protected. So maybe you want to imagine yourself on stage sharing your magic with two bodyguards with big guns next to you protecting you. Or maybe you want a more graceful, feminine vision. Might be that you are sharing your magic and you're surrounded by these angels or fairies, or even just other women, your sisters, who are like, yeah, they're just energetically keeping everyone at bay and just in full support and celebration of you. And then you want to find that resource in the real world. And this is where circle comes in. Where's your circle of sisters who are celebrating your magic and supporting you and bringing your magic to the world, that you actually feel that sense of support, of women got my back? And maybe when you're getting yourself ready to do your first Facebook Live or whatever it is, to put yourself out there, that you have that go-to sister or sisters to call on who maybe can make a comment saying, yeah, you got this, or just a text message saying, yes, we've energetically got you, we're supporting you as you come out into the world, into your expression. You're not alone. You're safe and you're not alone. And you're more safe when your sister's got your back. There is that fear, right? That we're not safe. We're going to be burned at the stake. It's not just that these women, these people are going to write mean comments if I do a Facebook Live, but they're going to destroy me. They're going to destroy my reputation. They're going to turn everyone against me. And then they're going to burn me at the stake. I'm going to die. That could be the visceral response that we're having, that we have to move through, that we have to heal. So this is really, really important for us as women stepping into the light, stepping into our spiritual gifts, to keep doing the work. And the work is in the body. The work is in the body. That's where you're having the response. That's where you're getting stopped. In healing the feminine, we must come back into the body. Healing the feminine is about embodiment. Being in these bodies, seeing these bodies as our temples. They are our vehicles to express our magic in the world. We are of this earth. We are of this matter. These bodies matter. So, yes, we can be in the ethers with our magic, but the magic is in these bodies that have come to this earth plane to bring our magic. And it doesn't have to just be a spell or a ritual. We all have a different expression. This is the divine feminine rising into our power by embodying our magic. I would love to hear from you. Please leave me a comment, whether it's sharing your witch wound, sharing what your magic is, or sharing an insight that you got from today. I look forward to continuing on this journey with you.
You just listened to this show. I'd love for you to leave the Brave Woman podcast an honest review. Reviews help podcasts like this one grow, making it more possible for me to devote my time, energy, and money to its production. If you take a screenshot of your review and email it to support@sistershipcircle.com, we'll send you one of our archetype activations as a thank you gift. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
Up next, for the last 3 episodes, we've examined the split with the feminine through the lens of sister, mother, and witch wound. And the next phase of this heroine's journey that we're on is called the surrender, where you are invited to put down your sword and shield and let go of control. If you're ready to give up old strategies that no longer serve you, this one's for you.